de nuestro país para no tenerla aquí.
We escaped our countries because we weren't safe. Now we're not safe here, says this migrant from Venezuela, who's among the 82 families being housed at the Ramada Inn on Tuckahoe Road. Migrants first arrived at the location last May, welcomed with donations from nonprofit groups and Westchester residents. But in the months since, the asylum seekers say they've been harassed by social service administrators and intimidated by security guards they employ.
Wow. You see it, we got to do it. Up in New York, man, we just took a trip from Denver. Now we're going to take a first-class flight out to New York and see what's happening with the migrants out there. Because we see that New York is still opening shelters. New York and Boston are some of the few sanctuary cities that's still opening up shelters. So let's take a look and let's run it. And we finally got a response from Eric Adams about Greg Abbott pulling up. We're going to take a look at it. Let us know your thoughts.
Multiple arrests at a hotel in Yonkers that serves as a shelter for migrants. Residents say things got heated yesterday when they confronted hotel staff who they say have been mistreating the migrants and taking things from their rooms. Eyewitness News reporter Marcus Solis is in Yonkers this evening. Marcus?
Sandra, it was last May when the city of New York signed a contract to house 250 migrants here in Yonkers. In nearly the year since, tensions have been running high between the organization that oversees the shelter, West Hab, and the residents. The images are dramatic, the tension at a boiling point. Yonkers police arresting 2 migrants, one of them a woman who was pushed to the ground during a scuffle with officers. The incident occurred yesterday, but many of the asylum seekers say their frustration has been building for months.
Si no teníamos seguridad en nuestro país para no tenerla aquí.
We escaped our countries because we weren't safe. Now we're not safe here, says this migrant from Venezuela, who's among the 82 families being housed at the Ramada Inn on Tuckahoe Road. Migrants first arrived at the location last May, welcomed with donations from nonprofit groups and Westchester residents. But in the months since, the asylum seekers say they've been harassed by social service administrators and intimidated by security guards they employ. The chief complaint is workers entering rooms without warning or with no one present. The occupants have been told the reason is to remove unsafe appliances like hot pots, which are not allowed.
Se me perdía la plancha, el secador, me sacaban mis cosas de trabajo.
My iron, my hair dryer, things for work have disappeared, she says. But others claim money and jewelry have been stolen. They say their complaints are met with calls to the police. This clip, the asylum seekers themselves called 911, feeling threatened by a security guard walking through the parking lot holding a knife.
Back up. Back up, please.
Management called police on us today, saying we needed an appointment to visit.
Not today, not today. Whenever you get a chance, just call and I'll talk to you.
But I got you right here, so let me ask you.
Anyway, you guys have to leave, okay?
Social services at the Ramada are being coordinated by an organization called West Hab. The mayor of Yonkers says he's monitoring the situation.
As I've always said, I'm mad at those who brought the migrants to our community, but certainly would never treat the migrants with any less dignity than they deserve.
That's true. So now we see that that's happening in Yonkers. Meanwhile, they're opening up a brand new shelter out in Brooklyn. Let us know your thoughts.
It's one of the most recent migrant shelter sites to open. The Gowanus shelter, located in Brooklyn, opened its doors starting last Wednesday and has a capacity to house up to 400 migrant men. The former manufacturing building is located next to the Gowanus Canal, one of the most heavily contaminated water bodies in the nation. The building is also next to a vacant lot that used to house a gas manufacturing plant. As a result, the State Department of Environmental Conservation has listed the site as one of the properties the agency intends to test to see if underground contaminants are still present in the soil.
The health and safety of everyone in our care is always sort of the top priority.
City Hall defending the use of the site on Tuesday, saying that the shelter meets local and state regulations and passed an inspection from the State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. On top of that, the city says that the landlord of the building conducted a soil vapor intrusion test and found no indication there are current health risks to the people living there.
We are also working with the State Department of Environmental Conservation to schedule an additional soil vapor intrusion test at this site, which is not mandatory testing.
Neighborhood residents who are part of the 3rd Street Block Association have filed a lawsuit against the city over the use of the site as a shelter. In a statement, the group said, quote, "The use of this property without testing and remediation violates New York City zoning rules and New York State environmental standards and places all residents and migrants in danger and exposes the city to long-term liability that taxpayers will be responsible for." To date, more than 189,000 migrants have passed through New York City since the spring of 2022, and the city has opened more than 200 temporary shelter sites.
Last week, 1,500 migrants have come, which means that there's a slight bit of an uptick that we're seeing, so we're always paying attention to that.
Wow, you see it there. Man, over 200 shelters have been opened since Greg Abbott had sent migrants up to New York. And if you don't know, Greg Abbott had hit New York scene, man, a couple of days ago. Greg Abbott, yes, he hit the New York scene. And now we have a response from Eric Adams. So let's hear that as he's opening new shelters in New York, and let us know your thoughts.
The Republicans are having a convention here in New York City, and Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, has already made headlines by talking about, whether or not he sent the migrants here before or after he says you took a shot at him and he wanted to get credit for it. First of all, I know that a little bit sarcastically you invited him to stay in a migrant shelter, but one, have you actually had a conversation with him since this all began? And two, if so, if not, what would you say directly to the governor of Texas?
Yeah, and listen, he started sending migrants here, and we reached out and said, let's coordinate this issue. We both realize that this is a national problem, and it should not impact our cities in his state. And it's unfortunate, instead of that collaboration, he chose to take out his anger on a national problem, both Congress' failure to have immigration reform and the White House not putting a real plan to move this issue forward. But instead of doing what other mayors from Chicago, Denver, and with the governor of Massachusetts and others are doing, he chose to aggravate the problem by sending busloads of people across the country to New York City. And it just was unfair. And I hope what he would do is take me up and come visit some of the HERCs and the migrant centers that we have here to see what we have been doing and at the cost of the residents of New York.
You hit one of the nails on the head. I mean, this is really a federal issue, and the federal government's not taking care of it. And you talked about cooperation between cities and state governments. You've been really open about criticizing the Biden administration for not dealing with this problem. Have you gotten anywhere with any progress there?
Well, as you know, we received a little over $100 million from the Biden administration, all committed to, I should say. But when you do an analysis, we spent over $4 billion. And this could cost us anywhere in the area of a little over $10 billion. We were fortunate that we brought down the cost of the migrant and asylum seeker about 30%.
What? It was supposed to cost $10 billion, and it's already cost $4 billion? New York, tap in. Anybody, let me know how y'all feel about this. That's a big budget, man. $4 billion spent already?
Looking at ways that we can have a peg of when we close the cost of this, and we got a substantial number, over 60% out of our system, and they are now self-efficient. But we need more from Washington. This is not a New York City cost. It should not be attached to us, and it's not fair to any municipality. I would not move this problem or displace it to another municipality, and unfortunately, that's what the governor did. But the Washington, both in Congress and the White House, both have a role to make sure these cities are not going through this.
Wow, you see it there, and you heard it for yourself. That was Eric Adams' response to Greg Abbott coming up to New York and getting money in his city. and going back to Texas and living lavishly in that beautiful weather of his. So let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts. Was that a sufficient response? And New York is still opening up shelters, while we see Denver and Chicago, they're trying their best to either close shelters or mask the fact that they're continuing to assist migrants. Okay? Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts.